Well, members of number 4, today we are privileged to have Brad Tilden, the Chief Executive Officer of Alaska Airlines, as our program today. He's also the President of the Chief Executive Officer and President of the Alaska Air Group and its 2 subsidiaries, Alaska Airlines and Horizon Air, its regional affiliate. The 2 airlines employ nearly 13,000 people and fly more than 180 aircraft to some 100 destinations in Canada, U.S., and Mexico. Under the leadership of Brad and his team, Air Group's focus is on providing industry-leading customer service. And having flown back and forth to LA over the last week, outstanding job, Brad. Making Alaska and Horizon the easiest airlines to fly, Alaska's peoples have earned a recognition for ranking highest in customer service for the last 7 years with J.D. Power and Associates. They are also ranked number 1 for on-time performance for 4 consecutive years. Brad earned his bachelor's degree in business administration at Pacific Lutheran University and an executive master's degree in business administration at the University of Washington. And he also holds a private pilot's license, and he's instrument rated. He was introduced to aviation at an early age. He grew up down near Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and it's like his press release says, he liked to watch Alaska Airlines land and take off. He's a resident of Seattle. He's married and has 3 daughters. Won't you give a warm Seattle 4 welcome to Brad Tilden. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks very much, Tom. It's a real honor to be here. I think I'd heard a few years ago that the Seattle Rotary was the largest in the world, and I was just reminded of that. And congratulations, you all do such impressive work, and it's neat to be in your presence. So today is October 1st. It's sort of the first day of the 4th quarter. It's sort of the end of summer. I guess the fall equinox was a week ago or something, but it's just a chance to look back on what a fantastic summer we had here, and it's kind of a reminder of all of the great things about living in this absolutely beautiful part of the world. So I hope everybody got a chance to get out and enjoy the summer. Before we get too far into this, I wanted to just see if there are any customers of Alaska Airlines or Horizon Air in the room. Any mileage plan members or golds, and has it been okay? Is this a friendly crowd, or it's okay? All right, good. I want to thank you for your business. I'll talk more about it in a bit, but we've grown more rapidly quite a bit more rapidly than the average airline, but we're still very small. We're less than 4% of the U.S. industry, and we're here because of your support, and we really, really appreciate it. So that's that. It is my honor to be here. As Tom said, I went to Highline High School down in Burien. There used to be exactly. Thank you. What year? 64, a couple years before me. But a fantastic school. They used to have a park up where you could go up there and sort of watch airplanes take off and land. It's where the 3rd runway is now. And a lot of people went up there to watch airplanes take off and land. And I didn't have a girlfriend or anything like that. So anyway, I actually went up there and did watch Alaska jets take off and land. And I always sort of wondered where they were coming from and where they're going to. But that's how I sort of everyone's got a passion, everyone's got an interest, but that's where my bug started for aviation. There are 3 things I'd like to talk to you about today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Alaska Airlines, how we're doing, and what we're working on. I'd like to move from that and talk about Seattle and the state of Washington and some things that I think we should all be talking about together. And then if I do this right, and if Ken helps me, I'll quit talking at the right time, and hopefully there'll be a few minutes for your questions, because I'd love to interact with you and hear what you think about Alaska and what your concerns are, and just have a chance to hear what's on your mind. Quick snapshot of Alaska, and I might be real quick, but we are a $5 billion business. That's when I started with the company in 1991, we were a $2 billion business. So we have grown pretty rapidly, but as I said, the other airlines are consolidating. So if you go back 10 years, it took 9 airlines to cover 90% of the industry. Today, it takes just 4 airlines to make up 90% of the industry. We did move into the Fortune 500 this year. That was something we're proud of. 13,000 employees, as Tom mentioned, 185 airplanes, the most fuel-efficient airplanes in the industry, the least carbon-emitting airplanes in the industry. Yeah. At both Alaska and Horizon. And I think you know in Seattle, we don't have to talk to you a lot about our route network. We fly to lots of places. I will tell you that roughly maybe a little bit more than 60% of our flights either depart or land at SeaTac. So SeaTac's a very, very important airport for the company. A lot of growth in the last few years. The transcons are what we did after 9/11. The mid-continent destinations sort of followed that. Hawaii is what we've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. And you all see the Hawaii growth, but we actually fly to Hawaii off 8 cities on the West Coast. So Anchorage, Bellingham, Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, San Jose, Oakland, and looking at Joe Sprague, San Diego, and is that ever? Bellingham, yes. So Bellingham. Thank you, Joe. So yeah, that's kind of been recent growth. We're in a lot of alliances. We're partners with Delta. We're partners with American. We're partners with 12 or 13 international airlines, and that's kind of been our strategy. We're not in any of the global alliances like One World or Star or what have you. Our sense is that we bring the most value to our customers with the structure we have. Our basic goal is to make it as an independent, Seattle-based airline, and that's something that's super important to us. There's a lot of constituents that we have. We think that we bring the best value to everybody that we work with, our customers, our employees, our communities, our investors, by being an independent Seattle-based airline. Our mindset is that it's pretty easy what you have to do if you want to be independent. You got to perform. You got to be the best answer for each of those 4 groups, and if you are the best answer, you should be able to control your destiny. So that's what we're trying to do. So how do you do that? You know, one of the things about the airline business is it can be complicated, you know, and it's people can, IT systems or new approaches you might be flying, or it might be a new marketing scheme, it might be a new leadership development scheme. There can be a lot of complexity in the business, and but I guess what I sometimes say is it is intricate. There are a lot of moving pieces that have to be right for us to be on time and to be safe and all of that. But one thing about it is that you get to repeat. I mean, today actually isn't that much different from what we did yesterday. So one of the things I sort of like to do when I walk around the company is look into a conference room and sort of poke my head in and listen. And if it doesn't sound like an airline in the first 3 or 4 minutes, you get concerned, you know? It's because the basic goal is to carry folks from Seattle to Orange County, say, and to get them there safely and on time with great service and at a great fare, and hopefully make a couple of bucks in the process. That's what we need to do. So I sort of try to remind myself of what the basic things that you got to get right in the middle of all of this other stuff. Is anybody here a bicycle rider? Ken's a bicycle rider. So what kind of bike do you have, Ken? Road bike, yeah? Yeah, distance? 12 pounds. Ken, you are perfect for this exercise. How much, no wind resistance? Is that what you said? How much do your wheels weigh on your bike? Weigh, yeah.
Less than my chip on my shoulder.
Less than the chip on your shoulder. Maybe a pound or 2? Tops. So bicycle wheels are amazing things. And there's actually 2 definitions of the word integrity. There's the word that we all know, sort of the do the right thing. But there's another definition that something is sound, it's consistent, it's strong throughout. And that's what a bicycle wheel is. It's sort of a remarkable device. And one of the things that we talk about at Alaska is let's build the company like Ken's bicycle wheel maker, whoever that was, built his wheels. Sort of with integrity, with strength, sort of strong throughout. So what are the spokes? I mean, in the midst of all of this other intricacy, what are the spokes that you got to have right? And I'm going to go kind of quick because I do want to get to some other stuff, but we need to be safe. People take that for granted. It's okay if you take it for granted. We shouldn't. Secondly, we've got to be on time. The major thing we're selling is convenience and getting you to Orange County or New York or wherever quicker than the alternative. So we need to get you there on time. As Tom mentioned, we have, I don't think on-time performance is not something the company's been great at for 30 years. We've sort of been middle of the road, but for the last 4 years, we have led the industry in on-time performance. Got to have great service. I mean, people in this day and age, you know, it's air travel can be somewhat impersonal. We want to be known for great service. One of the big things recently, so this is the 4th spoke, is low fares. I mean, sort of a big, and I'll just say I started 23 years ago in the business, and we're always designing the product for these people that wanted to pay really high fares. And I sort of said, I can't wait till I travel in that crowd so I can meet these people that want to pay a lot of money for their air ticket. And I started to meet goals, and I started to hang out with them, and I realized that nobody wants to pay a lot of money for air travel. And so it was 10 or 12 years ago, we sort of said, let's be like Costco. Let's be on our customer side. Let's build this model so that we can be on their side and try to offer them low fares. Get myself caught up here. We're an operating business. Our employees have to be engaged. What I sort of say at work and what others say is that if you have a lousy management team, if you have a lousy strategy but great employees, you'll be a good airline. If you have a great management team and a great strategy but employees that are not engaged, you'll be a bad airline. So it's super, super important that our employees are engaged. And I can talk a little bit. We do pay our folks well. We're the 6th largest airline. We're a smaller airline, but we don't want that to be reflected in someone's W-2. We want them to make great incomes, and I'm really proud of the way we're set up. What I will say is we ask our folks, for us to make it as a smaller airline, we need to be highly, highly productive. So when we sit down and we are highly unionized, when we sit down to labor negotiations, we say, hey, it's perfectly fair to bring in the pay rates of the other airlines, but let's not compare our productivity to the other guys. We want to be the leader there. When the company does well, we share with our employees. The last 3 or 4 years, we have done well. In basically early February, late January, it'll be this year, something like 8 or 9% of pay is paid to each of our employees. So I think Costco might actually notice it. They might have a big day when Alaska has profit-sharing payouts, and maybe some of your businesses do too. We need to be able to attract great employees, and some of you might have seen we recently hired a new CFO, Russell Wilson. So that was a pretty good hire for us. A good place to invest. I mean, airline, and I won't give you the long story, but airlines have been a train wreck for investors. They've been an absolute disaster. If you look at us over 100 years, the industry today, all of the airlines, all of the years added together, has a net loss. And so the industry is getting better now. I like to think that Alaska's been a good part of leading that. But honestly, these airplanes, and we have a fabulous, I don't know if there's folks here from Boeing, but we've got a relationship with Boeing that we're very, very proud of. But the airplanes cost a lot of money, and when we buy those airplanes, we need to basically have a mentality of how we're going to take care of the people that gave us the capital to buy the airplane. And then finally, and you don't need to tell Rotarians this, but we need to be good for our communities. We need to give back. We need to be an active member, an involved member. We need to be an important part of the communities where we're doing business. So what I'd like to do now is show a quick video that does talk about how we feel about this great state, about this great city. And then when the video's over, I'm going to come back and sort of move away from Alaska Airlines and pose a couple of questions about what we might do with this economy here. If we can roll the tape, I'd appreciate it.
Alaska 457 Seattle Tower, you are cleared to land runway 16 right. Welcome home.
Home is what matters to Alaska Airlines. Home is something we've built. It's something concrete, like our operations at SeaTac, employing over 6,000 in Seattle. It's enduring, like our all-Boeing fleet, and our commitment to our local economy. We constantly work to improve our home by doing what we believe is right. We lead the charge in sustainability, the in-flight experience, mileage program, award-recognized customer satisfaction, and giving back to our community. Our home gives us pride. It makes us fiercely independent and reminds us what it takes to survive and succeed in the Pacific Northwest. Home is something we serve. Whether we're going above and beyond for our Seattle area customers, sharing Northwest values with 100 destinations in the U.S. and beyond, we're taking an active role in local causes and charities. We rally for home. We yearn for it when we're far away. Home is where we turn to when we need inspiration in a tough spot. Every day, we're flying home to the people we love and the communities we serve. Alaska Airlines. It is our privilege to call Seattle home.
Do you like that video? I start every morning with that. About 6:30 in the morning, I sort of, no, it's a great reminder of the great things about this place where we live. Great people, great natural beauty, great businesses, great sports teams. It's just fantastic. But we do have challenges, and I sort of want to move now and talk about that for a little bit. And I'll say at the beginning, I've been at Alaska for a long time. I was a bean counter at Pricewaterhouse for that. I've given a lot of talks. I almost always talk about the airline business, or maybe about flying or accounting or something like that. This is new territory, but I think it's really important. It's really important that, and I think this is a crowd of Rotarians where I don't need to say this, but it's important that business people sort of get more involved in the bigger picture. The world is changing. We all know this. It's changing really quickly. It's a lot tougher to be a kid than it used to be. The world's going to be a lot different in 25, 50, 100 years than it is now. And sort of the question I want to think about is, do we want to just let that happen, or do we want to make it happen? Do we want to make something in particular happen? So I might just ask you to think about, like, what would you like this place to look like 100 years from now? What would you want Washington State? What would you want Seattle to look like? I took a minute and I scribbled some things down, and here's some of the things I came up with, and I bet just knowing the type of people that are Rotarians, I think you would agree with some of these things. But we should have strong families and strong communities, people that care. We should invest, do the sorts of things that you guys do, every Rotary meeting, every activity, every nonprofit that you're out there and supporting. That should be prominent. Second's our education system. We shouldn't have a good education system. We should not. We should have a great education system. Education is amazing. People in this room, we've been fortunate beyond words. Education is what can make that happen for other people. We should fund it in a big way. The third, and education will do this, but the sorts of opportunities that we've had, other people should have those opportunities. There should be a lot of opportunity in the future, and everyone should have access to that. Everyone that wants to work hard should have access to those opportunities. Fourth, and it may seem odd to hear a business guy say this, but I was a Boy Scout and I like being outside. We should leave it in better shape than we found it. It's one of the things they told us in Boy Scouts, 1973, 1971 probably, was leave the campsite better than you found it. What if that was a goal? We should have robust infrastructure. That's a fancy word. As I sort of get involved in more downtown panels and all that, we talk a lot about infrastructure. What that means is roads, highways, bridges, pedestrian access, bike lanes, all of that stuff. We need it. I got caught in a horrible accident on I-5 today. We might gripe about it when you're sitting behind in one of those construction projects, but if you want Seattle to be great 100 years from now, we need that stuff. We need to think about how do we fund it. We need to think about voting yes to some of those things. Buses need to think about voting yes to some of those sorts of things. And finally, and I think for a lot of us in this room are business people, I think this is something that needs to be talked about, but we need an environment where business can succeed. Business is kind of the engine of a lot of this stuff. It is true. Government doesn't create jobs. Businesses create jobs. So we need an environment where businesses can thrive and prosper, where they're sort of lifted up and helped. So those are realistic possibilities. One of the things at Alaska, and you might kind of get this as customers, but it can be a tough industry. One of the things we've learned is if you want to do something, write it down. Doesn't matter if you know how you're going to do it. Doesn't matter how hard it is. Doesn't matter if it sounds naive or Pollyannish or unrealistic. Just write it down. So we should write down what we want this place to look like and then get to work on it. I think my time is running short, so I might skip through some things. But I will just tell you that there's lots and lots of data that says that we need to do a lot better with education. There's one of the big points I was going to make if we had a little bit more time is there are lots of jobs available in this state today. There are lots of high-tech jobs, and I'm an airline guy. Why is Brad up here sort of pitching for high-tech jobs? It's kind of like, why do you go fish in the lake that has all the fish? It's like we're all kind of put our phones down, hopefully just for a minute. When you leave here, you're going to go back to your office and get on your computer. Even flying airplanes is a highly digital experience. For our pilots, a highly digital. STEM is where the jobs are. We want our kids to have good jobs. That's what we need to be thinking about. So we have massive skills gap today. There are good skills jobs, good STEM jobs available in our state today that we just can't fill. That's going to get a lot worse in the future. Our state's not doing great on our education for engineers and mathematicians, all that. We can do better. I had some data to sort of take that out, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to spare you that. The other thing is infrastructure. We need to do better on that side of things. But and is it time, Tom? This is serious hug. Yeah. All right. Well, what I might do, Tom, if I can just sort of to wrap a little bit, is say that there is a big opportunity here for us. I just think that we need to come together. We need to sort of, I think what I see in the business world is a lot of polarity. I see a lot of people hanging on to ideology, a lot of people sort of hanging in their camp and not really wanting to listen to the other people and come together. I think at Alaska we've actually had some good success doing that. I would like for Alaska and I'd like for others to be a part of a more deep conversation about what we do to really help our schools, to really help our infrastructure, to really help this place have the kind of future that it deserves to have. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have some questions along those lines and we can talk about it.
You mentioned your partners, and I think that's good to have partners as long as you don't decide to get married.
Yeah.
What do you need to do more of or less of to keep you from being taken over by some airline, which would be a bad thing for us, I think.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. You know, the way we're thinking about that is what we just need to do is maybe back up a step. We're in America. It's a capitalist economy. There's so much about that structure that's good. And what we've sort of decided at Alaska, we're not going to begrudge it. We're going to use competition to make us better. And so I think what we need to do if we want to remain independent is what I said. For you as our customers, we need to have great service. We need to be very compelling. We need to have low fares. We need to make it really, really tough for you to choose someone else other than us. For our employees, they've got to say, hey, there is no other airline I could work for. That's the best airline I could possibly work for. We need to be prominent in the community. We need to be seen as giving back, not exploiting the economy for our short-term gains. And then for investors have to say, which they can say, that the best answer for me is to hold Alaska Air Group as an independent stock, to have my exposure to these 737s, these Q400s as part of Alaska Air Group. That's a better investment choice for me than something else. That's what we got to do, and I'm confident. We've got a lot here that we can control, and that's what we plan to do. Thanks. Yeah.
A question about your competition with Delta.
Yeah.
So they seem to come into the market in a big way, but in some markets you seem to be cooperating.
Yep.
Atlanta.
Yep.
How's that competition going?
Yep.
What are you doing in response?
Yep. So it was a question about Delta, and that's kind of what that last question was actually about. But so yeah, they are coming into the market in a big way. Yeah, they are. What I would say is Delta's a partner, and I think what Delta's got three things that they're doing. They're growing internationally out of Seattle, which is good for Alaska Air Group. They're growing a little bit into their hubs, into places like Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, Atlanta, and all that, and that's fine for Alaska Air Group. And then they are growing on top of us in some of our markets. And so I think what we need to do in those markets, we call them overlap markets, like a San Diego or a Phoenix or a Juneau or Spokane or Portland, we need to compete, and we need to demonstrate that what we've got, that we bring real value and that we have real competitive advantage in those markets. That's what we need to do. And my hope is that at the end of the day, there's in a capitalist marketplace, there from time to time is some jostling around, and my hope is that things settle down and we say, what is Delta best in the world at, and what is Alaska Air Group best in the world at, and we sort of find a way to work together better. I can't say whether that'll happen or not, but that's what we're working towards.
Hello. Tom Jaffa, very proud Alaska Gold.
Thank you, Tom.
Alaska's my first, second, third, fourth, and fifth choice airline.
That is loyalty. That's what we're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
So my question was already addressed about Delta, but my wife asked me to ask you, our grandson lives in Memphis.
Yeah.
We've been to almost every city that you fly to in the United States, except where our grandson is. We fly to St. Louis and drive, so we don't have to fly Delta. But she asked me to ask you, when's Memphis coming and what other cities are on the horizon?
One of the things that I have talked about the airline business a lot, and one of the things I've been roped for is answering questions like, when is Memphis coming? But what I'll tell you is I was actually in Portland. Is today just Tuesday or today's Wednesday? I was in Portland with Monday with a bunch of airport managers, and the CEO of the Memphis airport was there. He asked the same question. What I can tell you is that a lot of those cities we've been adding service to. Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Austin, Albuquerque, help me, Joe, did I mention San Antonio, Dallas, Houston? So I think that next round of cities we call this our Seattle strategy, just filling out a network out of Seattle. So markets like that is not an unreasonable question. You can tell your wife that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you anymore. Yeah. Last question.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you keeping the airline independent, because I was in Memphis and St. Louis in recent weeks, and the airports are about maybe showing 10 flights, and they have about 5% of the employment they used to have. They've gone from being major dynamic engines of life in those communities to being just sad places. So, kudos to you for keeping the airline going.
Well, one thing that we don't want to say things that, I mentioned that this was our last question. I might just end with this. I don't want to say things that are too self-serving, but I would just say that I do think there is real value of having companies like Alaska now in the Fortune 500, headquartered in a place like Seattle, being involved. Are people involved like Rotarians with baseball teams and scout troops and all that, officers involved on boards of directors, giving to local things. And I guess what I would say is I have the same goal, and I just think if people sort of come together and say, hey, we like that. We like having good companies based here in the Northwest. That will also help make that happen. So you guys have been super wonderful. You've been really generous. I appreciate it, and thanks for all the good things you guys do for the world. John, can I say one more thing? He said something like, how many beach vacations can you go on? Which I don't think he really meant that. We have a huge Hawaii beach business, but I hope you take lots of beach vacations, but I hope you also do the international service trips as well. Thank you.
Seattle Rotary Online is made possible in part by a grant from First Choice Health, working with the Washington Health Information Collaborative to use technology to bring better health care to patients throughout the Pacific Northwest. First Choice Health.